All right. So welcome to Mike's Real Estate Podcast. I am very honored to have Don Hobbs here with me today. Don Hobbs has uh, top 25, he's named top 25 most influential people in real estate and has influenced over 1 million real estate agents. How does that feel to have that kind of reach?
It's somewhere between old and very exciting.
Well, it's a lot to do in 1 year. So good job on that.
It's exactly right. Yeah, it's been a few years, so it's worked out. And if you do something long enough, you're bound to hit some numbers that are interesting. But yeah, it's for sure. It's been an honor. It's been so much fun, and real estate's been my life for oh my gosh, so long, 40 years. So
wow. So I might be talking to you a little bit early in the year. This is a nice, crisp fall day here in Portland. This is when we take our time off as real estate agents, right?
Yeah, well, so for some they do. And this is a time when people say it's slow in real estate, right?
Yep.
Mike, the interesting part about that is so much of that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's just we take off. I mean, let's face it, there's so much that's pushing. And I've always said, it's funny, I just had this conversation a few minutes before we got on Zoom, and I said, there's very little difference between self-employed and unemployed. Right. And this is the time of year when you see that is that, it looks very much the same, because unless you're in action, if you're self-employed, it looks like you're doing nothing. And the challenge is most people aren't really prepared to handle independent contractor status, in my own business, in control of my own schedule. And I think right now, if there's one thing that I would say, let's start off with some interesting nuggets. But the biggest thing right now, Mike, is people have to be purposeful with their time off, because I think if they're not purposeful with their time off, it just slips. It's like there's a family thing, there's a little party for the kids at school. It's like there's just one more thing. Pretty soon you have no business time going, and then you wonder why it's a slow time of year. I know agents that have had their best years, their best months ever in November and in December. I know people that have written contracts on Christmas Eve and on New Year's Eve. And, it's like, those are great stories, but it's also the truth, and has mostly to do with putting ourselves in the right mindset and putting ourselves in the right time blocking. So I'm sure we'll unpack some of that.
Well, on our team, Beltran Properties, Jamie just has that belief that the fourth quarter is the best quarter. And I think that's become its own self-fulfilling prophecy. And last year we had our December was our biggest month for the entire year. And even our lender and our title rep independently went, wow, you guys had a killer December. And that's just his belief.
December, remember, baby. That's what they call it on Mercedes. And the Mercedes are a December to remember. Yeah, but it's true. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy, Mike. And I think the biggest thing is we can put our heads around how we keep ourselves in the game. We've been talking about even doing an event this year, a local event, just for our own team, but December 30th. Why December 30th? Because it gets people out of the holiday mode and back into gear, because at some point we got to get up and go, it's time to go back to work. Question is that January 2nd, or is that January 7th, or is that January 16th? And now with no momentum, we're slowly rolling into, losing January. I mean, I'm just saying there's so many things that are mostly happening right here.
So tomorrow is Halloween, and then people set up for November or for Thanksgiving, and it just and that whole Christmas time gets crazy. You got a party here, at this thing here. So being purposeful, what does that mean to you?
Mostly I'm a big fan of taking the time off that you want, but not just letting all time be off. So like, be purposeful. If there's a party and there's a thing and there's a time block it, all that stuff. Like my instruction at the beginning of the year, which for some of these people will be listening and watching, any time of the year, right?
Right.
Is take all the time that you have no control over, things you've committed to. It's the company convention, the state convention, the wedding for your cousin, things that you have no control over. Take them off the calendar completely, right? Just get them on the calendar so that time is not available. And then next thing is go in and get your time off. Well, let's do a micro version of that and say between November and December, why don't you just go in and take all the time that you want to take off? I'm going to take this day. This is the little Christmas party at my kid's school, and this is the formal that my husband and I or my wife and I are going to. This is and just put those things on the calendar so you know this is when those days are, but the rest of it is all work still. Here's Christmas shopping, right? And I think we just have to put ourselves in a place where we're purposeful with what we are doing and very purposeful with what we're not doing.
Instead of by default and everything falling away, and all of a
Right.
sudden you lose the whole week off of binge watching Hallmark
Exactly.
Christmas shows.
It's super simple to do that because, the kids are home and there's so many things going on that just, they tug on you in different ways. I saw the Facebook post the other day about, I think, weren't they calling this the Hallow Thanksmas time? Right? Is
Yeah.
that weird? I was looking at it from a different place. I was saying, I love this week because it's like, we have the World Series, we have basketball, football, like everything, hockey, everything is happening this week. And people are like, no, it's all the holidays. It's funny, but that's perspective. And I think most of it is where are we putting our time and attention? Because where we put energy, we're going to get results. Where we don't put energy, no results. Fact.
One of the things that I try to instill in my agents on the team is be where you are. If it's work time, be at work. If you're at home, be at home. And it's not perfect. Real estate and being self-employed, all that it's never going to be that perfect. But if you're with your kids, with your wife, whatever, and you're thinking about work, or vice versa, you're not getting the full benefit of your abilities in either realm. That's kind of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's totally it. And Rohn, I spent a lot of years with Jim Rohn and was his president back in the 80s. And he used to say all the time, wherever you are, be there. Right? Wherever you are, be there. Because that's the truth, Mike. It's a great description. We're at work and we're thinking about the time off or vacation or whatever. We're on vacation thinking about work, right? So then we're never mentally in that place. We're mentally the other place. And I think we've really got to get ourselves more disciplined. It's hard. Mental discipline is almost never talked about, but the truth is we're just untrained. Like we train in the gym, but we don't train our minds too much. Focus is hard.
How do you train that?
Short spurts of doing things, committing to it. Time blocks. Time blocks are one of the greatest essentials to that. Staying focused on something and giving yourself a time block like these 2 hours. I'm sure everybody's had the experience. I know I have, where you get involved in something and time just passes. Like it's like, I can't believe it's been 3 hours. So when you get into something, you really get in a flow. And we are so choppy. We're going to handle a call that comes in instead of calling them back, sending it to voicemail. We're going to take the call when they call. We're going to look at the Facebook thing that popped up, somebody's live. We're going to, it's like there's just a constant set of distractions, and we're going to let each and every one of those distract us from the big picture. And we end up at the end of the day going, I was so busy today, I have no idea where the time went. So I think it's really working on that. And then I think it's also turning off notifications, turning off stuff that interrupts. It's, it's almost like these evil distractions that are, designed to get us, and we set them up, and then they keep coming and they never end. I mean, it's dings and bells and whistles. I mean, we got like 6-7 different platforms we communicate on right now, and I'm not even hardly using email. So, I tell people, if you send me an email, you better text me because I'm not looking at email.
Really?
No, it's just too hard. There's too many. I've got filters and filters and filters, and it's still too many. Just too much junk, right? So anyway, I think we just need to shut that stuff off and really stay on point. And again, you're the one that dictates what happens with your hours. And the one question that really is important, and I think this would be great for any of your viewers, listeners, and that is, what's it costing you to do what you're doing the way you're doing it in terms of time with family? What's it costing you in productivity? What's it costing you? And the price tag is enormous. It's enormous.
Wow. That's makes you really stop and wonder. So there's a lot of things that we talk about. I coach, you coach, we talk to people and we try to help them, help ourselves even. There's not much that we're telling people that they have not heard before. So how do you make that gap between knowing and doing? And anything, real estate and business, you just reveal a lot of your weaknesses. You get pushed in places you never thought of. And so people, well, that can go down another road. But so how do you bridge the gap between knowing and doing?
Again, I think there's an element until so again, I'm a big believer that the schedule pretty much controls life. So I think that's a great place, right? If you have the ultimate schedule, here's all the things that need to happen, and here's when they're going to happen. And I know people go, well, I need flexibility. I want freedom. I want, it's
spontaneity.
Like, well, that's awesome, but that's not going to work for your business time, right? You don't do that at work. If you had a job, you wouldn't just go, I don't feel like working right now. I'm just going to, check Facebook out for the next 30 or 40 minutes. Somebody's going to fire your butt, right? So I think there's an element of we have to work from a schedule and work from the schedule that's been thought through. One of the things that I saw somewhere in the last few years was there was a phrase. It was, build a schedule and the schedule will build your business or whatever. And I remember thinking to myself, it was really like, we always try to build the business instead of building the schedule that builds the business. So we build the schedule. If we follow this stuff, this is what I'm doing from 8 till 10:30. This is what I'm doing from 10:30 to whatever. I've got that schedule that I lay out for agents, and they say, well, it's not exactly me. I'm okay. Let's date it for a while. Let's figure out what it really is for you. But the bottom line is, once it's your calendar, it should be repeatable. Now there's some weird things that come in, but I've even got flex time built in. So flex time gets used up for something that's flex. It's like, it's not a travesty. Or if, the other thing we've always talked about is if you erase something that, is a must, how do you do business? I got to be on the phone with people. I got to be lead generating. I got to be marketing. I got to be doing something that's related to getting calls in or calls out. So if I take that off the schedule and say, well, I had this client that came in, you understand, I had this client that came in. It's like, well, that one client cost you how much? Because during that time you would have made whatever, but let's just presume you did substitute that out and you say, that's when I'm going to do it. Then when do you take that same piece that was in the schedule and put it somewhere else? Because you can't not do the things that make your business work. So I think the biggest answer to your question is, it happens in scheduling, and it happens in little bite-sized chunks, because the hardest thing is to think about what you're going to do for the year. It's really easy to think about what you're going to do for the next 3 hours. And I think it's put yourself on a really short leash and check-in points. Like I have a lot of my clients will do time logs every 15 minutes. And then it's like a short note. I mean, it's just, a Facebook post and took a client call. All I want to do is at the end of the day, be able to go back and go, it wasn't like there was just this massive time. There was lots of little occurrences. And I want to be able to see where I get distracted, where my bright, shiny objects are, where my squirrels are, right? I want to be able to see when I go, what was that? And I'm off track. And then we can eliminate those. But I think once you do that, it's not that hard. Now, again, knowing is one thing. If you don't know, then you have a whole different set of conversation, right? But if you know what to do, and most of us do, most of us know what to do, we're just not doing it. It has to do with scheduling, discipline, focus.
They say we're getting less and less focused. Is it because of all the dings and the notifications? And
exactly what we're talking about. It's exactly right, because we have so many different variations, which seem really cool. And especially when they're new, they're really cool. But we don't realize how much they become the rulers of our world. I mean, Facebook, our phones, I didn't bring mine in here, but to hold it up and go, my phone, it rules our world pretty much. How much, what's the first thing that we do pretty much the beginning of a day, right? The alarm goes off. What's the first thing? And I ask people this all the time. I say, what's the first business act you took today? And if they're in a seminar that I'm doing, and they'll say, checked voicemail, checked messages, checked email, and already you're on somebody else's agenda, not on yours anymore, because you just went to not your priority list, but their priority list.
But there's a real estate emergency I have to deal with right now.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I discovered, and great comment, because that's where it all gets handled, right? One thing I've always said is there's no such thing as an emergency email. So that's the worst place to check. because there's never an emergency email. If there is an emergency, trust me, they are pounding the phone. They are calling you. They are texting you, right? If somebody needs you, they're going to get you.
Yeah.
Email is not where it's happening. So we just got to be careful that we're not losing ourselves in all those little places. And that's how we eat up most of our days.
I feel like a lot of it is feeling like we did work, feeling like we did something productive. It's the busyness, right? Well, I looked at my email. I did this, and which says it's reactive. Are you doing things on purpose or by default? Same thing with, are you on vacation or are you working?
Right. Either one's a good answer. Just better figure out which one is purposeful.
Be honest with yourself, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's go back to, this is the time where there's holidays.
Yeah.
And there's more time with friends. How do we not lose all the momentum? How do we hit November 1st and not feel like we're going from a dead sprint after laying down?
Well, a couple things you can do. First of all, I'm a big believer in a short sprint, and we set up what we call 12-week periods, right? We set up these 12-week, 3-month periods. And they're called quarters in the calendar world, but it could be started from any time. It could be, June through August. It could be, March through whatever. It doesn't have to follow the calendar. But if you can do these short sprints, what's interesting, and in fact, there's a book called The 12-Week Year, which would be a great read for anybody. The 12-Week Year talks about this. I had a coach, Mike, way back, early 2000s. And he had this thing he called a vacation miracle. And he said, and this is a really good lead into where I was going. He said, did you ever notice how much you get done before you go on vacation? I said, yeah, it's always like finished. He said, so what's that about? And I said, well, I know I'm not going to be here after Friday night, right? Friday's my last day. We're leaving on the weekend and we're going away for 17 days or 10 days or 5 days, whatever it is. So what has to get done between now and Friday? So what happens is I start to filter things differently, because now I know for a fact that I don't have that much time this week. When you say, hey, dude, we're going to do coffee, I'm like, I know, but this week it's not going to work. So I start getting very selective about what I do when I'm under that time pressure. So there was a moment in time way back when I was a kid. I was 21 years old, I think, the first year that I made $100,000 in my selling business. I was with Jim Rohn and was selling seminars and made $100,000. I remember him saying to me, Donald, now that you've figured out how to do that, do it in half the time. So all of these things are the same, a different way of saying the same thing, and that is it's about compressing time, right? How do we compress time? So the 12-week year really is about how do we do the things that we might take a year to do, but in the year we would do it, we have a lot of fluff time. We allow ourselves a lot of flitter. And if you're on a quarterly basis and you're doing that vacation miracle mindset, then it's like, sorry, I can't have coffee this week. Sorry, I can't do that this time. I'd love to, but not this week. And we start getting very selective. What things do we start putting on the calendar? Only the things that are moving the ball forward down the field, not sidelines, down the field. And it's very purposeful, right? So I think there's an element of that is how do we do that during this holiday? Because I've got, we just finished a quarter with one of my clients in Kansas City. And last year, she finished the whole year, Mike, with $18.4 million. Not a bad first year back. She was a coach, trainer, or whatever, came back into real estate. And then in the 3-month mark between, I think she started this year off with 16 deals or 14 deals in the first quarter. We got to April and we put her on this 12-week year. And in that next 3 months, they did 45 listings and 19 sales. So she did 12 point some million in that range, when last year, all year, she did 18.4. So we did it again right after that. We followed up with another quarter of the same thing, right? And so she's accelerating. And this year, she has already done the $35 million, which was her annual goal, which is twice last year. But what's even better is a couple of weeks ago, I said, let's do a side bet with your team. And let's say that the team gets an extra bonus when you take them off to Mexico or wherever their trip is. They're going to get cash too, right? So it's the trip and a little satchel with, $1,000 or $500, whatever it is. And if we hit 40 million, and now they're all like, how can we compress time? How can we do it in between now and December, right? And so it's not a matter of the time of year. It's a matter of focus. And the holidays only represent a giant increase of distractions, decrease of focus. That's all the holidays represent.
Wow.
Doesn't mean that we're not supposed to have fun. Doesn't mean that family's not important. Doesn't mean any of that stuff. It's just that you wouldn't at any time sacrifice all of the business and do all of your work hours and play. You would be discerning. And that's all we're saying. Just be discerning. Have a great holiday season. Enjoy your family. Enjoy the time. Enjoy peace. Enjoy tranquility and fun and festivities and parties and all that stuff. Just not all day, every day for all of December and into January 13th or 14th. It's too long. And then, by the way, that what happens is that we have no momentum, which is part of your question, right? We have no momentum. And then suddenly we're trying to figure out how to fire it back up, which is why this year I think I said this, but we were actually playing with this idea of doing a seminar. May not pull it off, but December 30th. And the reason is because if you can get people back in, one of the most powerful seminars I ever got hired to do in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I flew in there December 28th. And the guy said, if I can just get people back geared up again, he said, they're going to take New Year's off, but I don't want them waking up on January 7th going, oh, I got to get back to work. Right? So it's just like, let's tune them back in. Let's get focused. And right now, like we're doing a program up there in the Portland area called 2020 Vision. And that program is really about compression of time and focus. It isn't for the holidays, although it's happening in November, but it wasn't about that. It's about doing that for next year.
Right.
But the momentum that you're building is right now. And how we finish this year is absolutely how we start next year. You start with a slow, you finish with a slow, low, what do they call it? Simmer.
Yeah.
You start with you finish with a simmer. You start with your flames out.
So I've been writing some notes, and what I realized was really the holidays are they give us an excuse to take time off, because it's not like these are the only 3 months where there's partying and fun going on. We have summer, especially in Portland. Summer's really nice and it's sunny. We want to go out. It just ends up being that we're looking for a reason and we found our distraction. And I just love that it's just distraction. It's increased distraction that you're allowing to be a reason. Anyone who's tried to lose weight says, oh, I'm going to start my diet here. And then, oh, look, well, Fat Tuesday's coming. Oh, here's Easter. Here's this, here's that. And there's always an excuse all year long. Mm-hmm. We're just buying into this excuse. So it comes down to, what story are you buying?
What story are you buying? Whose story are you buying, right? What tapes are you playing? You bet. Great assessment. That's awesome. I think right now is a great time for especially for those, we know that people that have to sell right now. People that want to buy right now, want to get, that
motivated people.
The holidays, they're extremely motivated. If your client's not motivated, take it off the market and restart again next year. But the reality is, for most of us, there's a lot of business to be done out there. We're not putting our eye on it. We're not putting our focus out there. We're not giving it a shot. If you're doing direct mail, if you're doing, social media right now, I promise you're going to get business out of it. You've just got to get in touch. Now is the great time. I'll tell you one thing that's cool. Now is a great time for making contact with past clients. Now is a great time to reach out, because it's such a casual time. It's a time of giving and thanks and gratitude and gift giving, and just we walk down the street with people we don't know and go, hey, Merry Christmas. How are you doing? And we don't do that the rest of the year, right? So this is a time when we call people and they go, we were just talking about you. We've got to get our house on the market. You're like, really? How did that happen? Well, it's because you actually made the call.
Yeah. And it always comes down to the work, right? And being consistent. Real estate, I've been doing this since 2001, and I've went through it and I've watched other people go through it. It's that up and down, and it's not being consistent. And that's what I really like about the 12 week periods.
Yeah.
Keeps you focused, because, we look at the year. Oh, there's plenty of time to make this up.
Right.
And all of a sudden you get to October going, well, that year's just done. I messed up. You know what? I'll just start January 1st. And yeah.
I'll tell you a funny thing. I remember saying to a guy one day, I wasn't coaching. We were kind of partners in a side business. And I remember saying to him, he said, well, we had a really rough year this year. And I said, when did you pick up on that? Like, when did you figure that out? Why is it we're talking about this on December 5th and you're going, we had a really rough year?
Oh no.
Right? Isn't that funny? I mean,
yeah.
Wouldn't you in January know that you should be 1/12 of the way through your goals, or even a seasonally adjusted, something close to that, right?
Yeah.
That by February you go, we're on high alert. We got to get our butts in gear. By March, you'd be like, hey, we're behind, all hands on deck. Nobody's going home until we get this project done. Right? You don't wake up in December and go, it's been a bad year. It's hard to do. It's made up of 365 relatively bad days. I mean, it's hard to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just need to put ourselves on a tighter diet of disciplined actions. And one of the things I did learn really well from a guy by the name of Gary Keller, was habit. We need to put habits in place, and then habits aren't affected as much during the holidays because it's our habit, right? So where we really lack is we succeed mostly through discipline, and in the holidays it's easier for the discipline to go away. So if we put ourselves on a habitual behavior, habitual success behaviors, all you're going to do is keep doing it. I think when I spoke there one time with you, with a group up there, and I remember talking about my friend Brian Johnson. Brian has this big, incredible body. And I remember meeting him the very first time, like 6 years ago. And I said, how do I get those guns? How do I get that? And he goes, it's the gym, dude. It's 5 days a week. It's an hour and a half a day. And I said, really, how do you do that? And I remember him looking at me going, it's just something I do. And for him, it was like such a duh. And for me, it's like, how in the world would I make the time, get my discipline, put myself through that much pain, go through all that work? How would I do that? And it explains why I look like this and he looks like that, right? It's the same thing in our businesses.
Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but a couple of little other questions.
Sure.
Like you said, you worked with, you're president of Jim Rohn's Productions. Fantastic guy.
Amazing.
What is your favorite Jim Rohn quote?
You can have more than you've got because you can become more than you are. But if you stay how you are, you'll always have what you got.
Wow. I like that.
I've done a little adjustment to that. And I usually will say, you can have more than you've got if you remember who you are. Because I think we're bigger than we know. We're bigger than we play. But it all comes down to, if you keep doing what you're always doing, you're always going to get what you've always had. So if you change, when you wake up, when you put yourself in a place of success habits, you're more capable. We can do more. We just need to put ourselves in the place of success.
When, the people that have that habit or the mindset, how do they break through that? As quickly as I don't want to get into another half hour and take up that much of your time, but how do people get past that when they're stuck? That is their habit. That is their mindset.
I think you said to me that, small thinking becomes a habit, or becomes a learned behavior for sure. I think that thinking is, our thinking habits and the size of our thinking is way underrated. I don't think people, like, if we're just talking to the mere mortals as they're walking around on the planet Earth, our typical agents, I don't think they're thinking about the level of my thinking is affecting my level of results. I don't think they're thinking that. I believe that they believe that their work is the answer, that I'm going to just work hard. And I think if you were ever to look, and I might have shown it to you at one point in time, I certainly can't do it here, but there's this diagram that kind of takes let's see, I'm trying to look at, is this my left-hand side over here? I think it is.
Your left, yeah.
On the left-hand side, now I'm looking at, okay, so I'm going to do your left. On your left, this is the thinking line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And this is the time and energy line. So it's an L, big L. So the thinking is here, the energy line is here. And if we were to take our thinking and say, I got a project in mind, I'm going to build a small little company, or I'm going to build a small little business, real estate business. And I take this line and I draw it at a low trajectory, and I have this vision for this small little thing I'm building. And then somebody else comes along and they go, I'm going to build a big thing. And in that same L, we take this big thing and we put it up here. When you look at the time and effort, if you go across the time and energy line here, and you draw a line straight up that bypasses, or shall I say intersects, both lines, small thinking, small vision, small outcome, large thinking, large vision, large outcome, it crosses the line. What does it tell you? Same amount of time, same amount of energy. What's the dictator? The bigger you're thinking, the bigger the result. The smaller you're thinking, smaller the result. Time and effort, same. Time and energy, same. That makes sense?
That does make sense.
So I think for most people, it's reading, it's inspiration, it's YouTube's. We've got so much stuff available to us. I mean, your podcast, I'd be listening to it all the time, just getting inspired, just keeping my energy high, because my thinking is going to affect my results, right? That's really where it's at. So how do I keep my thinking elevated? How do I get around people that keep me thinking bigger? Who do I hang around? And do I need to change who I hang around to think bigger? What can I read that gets me to think bigger? Right? All of that.
That's a big one of who you're surrounded with, or who you are listening to the most.
Right. Absolutely.
So what are 2 books that you recommend for everybody?
12-week year for sure. It depends on where they're at. If they're relatively new in the real estate world, I believe more in business books than I do real estate books. There's almost nothing in real estate that matters. Julie Nelson's got a nice little book for agents that are newer and mid-production level. More than, I don't mean to put down on Julie's book, but it's really more of a how to get started and build something. Yeah. But it's probably not how to get to 80 million or $150 million a year, right?
Right.
So I really focus on things like the E-Myth, time books. Time is everything. Time is the use of our time is a big deal. So Getting Things Done by David Allen, Gary Keller's One Thing, the 12-week year. I mean, things like that are golden. And then business books like Expert Secrets. You asked for 2. I'm sorry, I'm giving you 5.
No, love it.
Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. I'm talking about marketing is the game. Marketing is your business. In real estate, marketing is everything. I don't believe in a sales approach to real estate. I believe in a marketing approach. Well, if you do that, then it's about how do I get calls coming my way instead of how do I make calls outbound. Well, if that's the case, you better start studying marketing, because marketing's your game, and most of us are pretty crummy marketers. So, but those are some of them. I think it's mostly business books. The Blue Ocean Strategy, Blue Ocean Strategy, right? Blue Ocean would be a great book.
Does the 22 Immutable Laws apply?
It does. Positioning was their first book from Trout and Reese, the 22 Immutable Laws. They had 3 or 4 good books in their run before their partnership broke up. There's some of the best stuff in the whole world for marketing. Yep.
Would it apply to real estate where you have, in my market, there's 10,000 agents. So they're trying to position and some of those things?
We should almost do this another time and really get into it. Marketing is a big deal, but it absolutely applies. I will tell you, the book Positioning was the foundation for the company I built called Hobbs Herder Advertising. And what we had was a company that was built all around marketing, and all we did was translate that book into realtorese. That's how we built the company. Doesn't mean that's where we landed in the end, but that's how we started it. We started with that foundation. So those are very important principles. They apply to any business. And the only thing that's sometimes hard is how to figure out how Coke and Pepsi and Hertz and Avis translates into real estate. But the bottom line is it does. And you have no choice in a 10,000 agent market, but to figure out what your differentiator is, how you stand out, what you do, not what you do, how you are different in people's minds.
Right.
So anyway, that's a different subject with way fun, wells of
maybe another podcast.
Sometime we could do that. That'd be great.
So we had a nice little half hour. So where can people see you in the next 3 months or so, maybe, to get themselves going? Where are you going to be?
Cool stuff. Well, first of all, they can always go to Master Agent Club. That's our company. Master Agent Club is a great place to go. Right now, we're just getting ready to launch that. So we've had my company's been under donhobbs.com, and you can see services there. But Master Agent's going to be an amazing company, and we're launching it this month, this next month, in November. And so there'll be a lot of things. But right now, the Facebook group right now for Master Agent Club on Facebook, you can join there. You got to answer 3 questions. I mean, it's just about real estate past, not a big deal. It doesn't cost you a dime. But get in there. We're putting some videos. We're putting a lot of cool stuff. And that's where we're going to be making announcements. Where we're going to be in Portland. We're going to be in Dallas or Houston, Dallas, Jacksonville, Seattle. I'm missing something. But anyway, we're going to be in a few places. And all of that stuff will be in there, and all those seminars will be listed. We're going to do the 2020 vision probably all the way through January before we start writing a different program for the spring.
All right. Any last words you want to leave us with?
Well, first of all, Mike, thank you for having me. I'm glad for people like you that do work like you do to help people, because let's face it, real estate is a great business for making a lot of money. It's a really hard place if you're flailing.
Yeah.
I will tell you that it's, in my opinion, it's probably one of the easier places to make a good multi-six-figure income. It's one of the hardest places to make a living. It sucks. It sucks to really be struggling, because it feels like there's nothing coming back for all the effort. And so I would just tell people, get involved with your podcast, come to our programs, get on Master Agent, watch the stuff we're doing, get around where it's better. You can't overtrain yourself. You can't over fine tune your mind. There's no way to overdo. Just get involved. Just get smarter, get wiser, hold your thoughts higher. Just, really dive in. Anyway, you're doing a great job. Thanks for including me in today's, podcast or simulcast or Zoom or whatever you call this thing.
Yeah.
And I look forward to doing it again.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate it. And I look forward to part 2 down the road.
We'll do it. I look forward to it. See you, everybody.